Hey, welcome to Listen to the Music. I'm Chase.
I'm Harrison.
Finley.
And I am Sean. And do you know what we are talking about today? We are talking about BLA Sabbath. Now, I realized spelling it the entire thing out would take way too long, so I just skipped halfway through. You get the point. But Black Sabbath, wonderful, wonderful group. For those of you who don't know, Black Sabbath were an English rock band formed in 1960 when, you know, the joke actually makes sense now for once.
It's the second time
they
that
were.
makes sense.
That's crazy. Unlike Elton John or Eminem or Miles Davis, Black Sabbath actually was
An English rock band.
Formed in 1968.
Indeed. And as our dear friend Finley would say, they were truly foundational.
Truly foundational.
To the formation and birth of the heavy metal genre.
Yeah.
Also, in the words of Finlay, yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Hey.
Yeah, man.
Hey.
Hey.
But anyway, one of the defining characteristics, of course, with heavy metal is the heavy riffs and the distortion, which to kick off our conversation, was not unique to Black Sabbath at the time. They didn't invent the use of distortion, but the extent to which Tony Iommi in particular took that really it changed music like that. From that first freaking tritone in Black Sabbath, from their album Black Sabbath.
From the band Black Sabbath.
Indeed. From that point on, you knew, oh boy, something's different now. But yes, speaking of Tony Iommi, he has a very, very unique situation with his guitar playing and his ability to, make the music that he does. Partially because he's missing several fingertips. Instead has these nubs on the end.
I can tell that story if you would like.
Go ahead. Be my guest.
So basically, I believe he was 17 years old, and he was working in a factory. And for the entire time that he was working in the factory, he worked in, one specific part of the factory that he, knew really well. He knew what to do. He was, streamlined. He was efficient. And then they were like, hey, Mr. Tony Iommi, why don't you go over to that cutter over there and do some stuff? And he can't say no, so he goes over there. And whoops, he's pushing stuff in, and his fingertips get caught, and he cuts off, I believe it's his right ring and pinky finger tips.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went to the doctors, obviously, because that's what you do when your fingertips are cut off. And they said to him, you are most likely never going to play guitar again. So what he chose to do was create fake fingers on his fingers, or fake fingertips on his fingers, like thimbles that he used to play.
And that in turn influences just a lot of the power behind his riffs, because in addition to being very heavy and cool by how they're written, because he can't feel those fingertips, he presses down super hard on the fretboard, and it really shows. I believe I've said this before, but Black Sabbath is by and large my favorite band of all time, and really is a huge inspiration for me. just so much about this band. Like with a lot of genres, there's like like a lot of things are debatable about like how they were created, like who really invented rock and roll, who really invented jazz, or who was the real first rapper or whatever. But aside from a few people who are not the brightest and think things like, oh, Led Zeppelin's a metal band, Black Sabbath, without a doubt, were the pioneers who created the metal genre. And just about every metal musician knows this and acknowledges it and pays homage to Sabbath in some way through their writing.
I think I don't have the same history with Sabbath myself as you do, because of course you are a resident metal expert. But I will say there's the genres. Every genre is. We've talked about the fluidity of genres, but there is a certain sound, a certain feeling, right, you can get from a various style of musical expression. You know when you're listening to metal. You know when you're listening to Sabbath. And it's a I was actually listening to some. I actually think it might have been Sweetleaf, the other day, and it reminded me a lot of the guitar riff. I believe it was Sweetleaf, but the guitar riff reminded me a whole bunch of stuff that I'd seen in or heard in JCS, Jesus Christ Superstar, which isn't metal in the same way Sabbath is, and it's not Sabbath, but I think that sound, that vibe, influenced this really raw. I don't know. Perhaps someone can speak to a similar, but it's a very raw, expressive, but it's hard to put to words.
I mean, hey, if you want to talk Jesus Christ Superstar and Black Sabbath,
Yep.
yeah, the guy who does the vocal again sounds a lot like the guy on the original recording of Jesus Christ Superstar, and
it's kind of crazy.
They both sound a lot like that guy from Deep Purple. Also, it's weird.
They do, didn't he? Yeah.
I know. It's like
that's really
they're the same person almost.
Truly crazy.
Wild. Can't imagine being the same person now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now you may be wondering, how could someone who was in Deep Purple be in Black Sabbath? I thought the singer be singing for Black Sabbath. I thought the singer for Black Sabbath was Ozzy Osbourne. Because we're gonna assume you know who Ozzy Osbourne is. For I think legitimate reasons.
Well, if you don't know who Ozzy Osbourne is an English rock band formed in 1968.
He is. He is an entire. You are not just the singer; you are the entire band. No, Ozzy. But he was the first singer for Black Sabbath.
That was the first bull in this ring. That's not the right expression. Never mind. I don't know. I thought I was making an allusion.
He was
to
the first Prince of Darkness, and
Miles Davis was the first Prince of Darkness.
Well, fair, actually.
True.
He was the second Darkness.
He was the second Prince of Darkness.
Mm-hmm. which that's a pretty honorable title. There's only so many darkness you have.
This is true.
Too many princes leads to a succession crisis, and no one likes that.
No one likes that. Then someone will start developing Confucianism, and you've got a problem.
Okay.
But the development of so Ozzy leaves, right?
What happens before Ozzy leaves?
That's a good thing to talk about.
We're jumping right into the Death Star without even visiting Tatooine.
Well, tell us about Tatooine then. Tell us about
Tatooine. I will. Tatooine is this, horrible, inhospitable planet, much like England. Black Sabbath story. Yeah, it's deserved. So, Black Sabbath, essentially, there's these 4 musicians in Birmingham, not the Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, Birmingham, England. Big difference. But they kind of joined together and like, hey man, we should let's do a rock blues band, and then they do that, and they're like, all right. And then they release their music, and people are like, ooh, I liked the part where it was like really cool, and they're like, whoa, our music was really cool. We should continue to make it really cool. And what are we gonna call this genre? And they're like, really cool music. And then society called it metal. I feel like when I tell stories,
it's a branding
and
issue.
I'm being sarcastic or joking, I don't just make that big enough distinction. But that was the incredibly bastardized, shortened story of the formation of Black Sabbath.
So basically, the Polka Talk Blues Band. For the record, the Polka Talk Blues was the first name of Black Sabbath, which is really funny to think about. As I was talking with Sean earlier, and he said it would be really funny if Black Sabbath hadn't changed their name, and people would be like, "Wow, the founding metal band, heavy metal band, was called Polka Talk Blues."
Polka Blues. Yep. Named after Ozzy's mom's choice of talcum powder, I think.
That's talcum, not
talcum. My apologies.
You'll get there, Finley.
I appreciate your belief in me. But on changing their name, or around that time, they released one album that I think is maybe something we want to touch on.
I'll give you a hint. All right, I'm going to spell it out. All right, B-L-A Sabbath. Exactly.
So Black Sabbath released the album Black Sabbath with this title song Black Sabbath on the album Black Sabbath by the band Black Sabbath.
That they did. And I think it would be fair to say that this was an establishing album for them, given that it also, their name. I thank you. See? They all knew I could get here.
Didn't be breaking out the new adjectives.
But
kidding. We love Finley here most of the time.
Sometimes.
After releasing Black Sabbath, they released Paranoid. Which I think, if people know Black Sabbath, they probably, if they just know it, if they know it at all, they probably know Paranoid.
Or they probably know of
it. Yeah.
The songs they know are probably from Paranoid.
Such as Paranoid from the album Paranoid by the band Black Sabbath, who also released the album Black Sabbath
the band
song
Paranoid.
Black Sabbath.
But yeah, I don't want to say generic because these are good songs, but the stock standard Sabbath songs that people are like, oh, what's a Black Sabbath song I should listen to? Or the Black Sabbath songs people will have heard. Iron Man, Paranoid, War Pigs. Those are the
the iconic Black Sabbath.
They're
song.
the three most well known.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's no surprise that Paranoid was a smash hit. I believe it was more of a smash hit later on. As Sabbath is one of those bands that, like, early on they weren't huge, but once the metal genre took off, and the bands that they influenced were like, oh, I was influenced by Black Sabbath, and the people who like those bands check out Black Sabbath, and they kind of got a lot of retroactive fame. But even during their heyday, they were still big, to say the least.
During their heyday, no one really knew what they were doing. It was this is new. I didn't know you could do this. Cool.
Oh yeah, they were
Established the following.
Mm-hmm. They were
the genre.
Definitely successful though during that time. Like it was Paranoid, that song, which that single like hit like number 4 on the UK singles chart. So like when a metal, it's already news enough when a metal song when a metal song or a metal album hits such a high rating on the charts. But when that happens before metal's like established as a thing,
before it exists, yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Before this band even was established as a thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Paranoid, they
was after.
Yeah, but they had definitely been established by the time they had released Black Sabbath and were on to Paranoid. Which, speaking of
Paranoid,
I'm sorry, Chase, I will let you finish, but I just want to point out something that's really cool. They released Black Sabbath in 70.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, they released Sabbath and Black Sabbath in 70, like February of 1970, and that had been mostly songs that they had just been playing in bars and clubs previously, and they had all that. And then 7 months later, they released Paranoid, and those are 2 of their most critically acclaimed albums and most beloved albums, and they're both released in the same year. I apologize, Chase. You can go ahead now.
Thanks. With all the talk about how Paranoid is so great, and it is so great, but that there's a part of it that I think was kind of bad press too. I think people, as much as it's like everyone's freaking out about it because it's so great. Wasn't there like the story where someone committed suicide and Paranoid was like playing the album, and then they were like they blamed the album.
That was Judas Priest.
They tried to. Really?
It was. I forget what the song was, but they were like claiming that like the family of the person who committed suicide had sued Judas Priest, and they said that if you play this one part of the song backwards, they do it, which kind of almost sounds like if you're listening.
Like the play it backwards and you hear the devil kind of thing. No, here. Yeah, so Judas Priest. Okay, here's what I was thinking of. An American nurse committed suicide, and Paranoid was found on her turntable. And people were like, oh, Paranoid was like a thing that made her commit suicide. But I think ultimately the thing was they found that no, it didn't. But I think they're really it didn't.
No way.
I think one of the things is definitely there was some bad press to it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of bad press to a lot of music, metal music, rock music, all kinds of stuff, because people were like, oh, it's the devil's music. You play it backwards and you hear Satan or whatever.
If you play it backwards, it says Paul is dead.
Oh boy, the Beatles episodes.
That one might be very long.
Mm-hmm.
We do like a special,
series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the bad press is definitely was a bit of a hindrance early on.
Especially when the
honestly, I think actually the bad press for what it is for being bad press, this is kind of just in general for music. If it's not like, oh wow, this song really sucks. If it's more like bad press is like, oh, this makes people want to rebel against the government or go into anarchy or whatever, that's actually kind of in sometimes good press. Because it's kind of like you want to be rebellious and be like, oh, the government's controlling us, they're putting us into wars that we don't want to be in. So in a sense, it can draw people to it as well. I just watched a movie.
Yeah. Frontman is going by the name the Prince of Darkness, even if he was the second. You attract a certain crowd, and that's and so when you get that, it's a more rebellious vibe.
Rebellious people like Sean.
Yes, I am well known for being rebellious and edgy and other.
All of those things, yes.
All adjectives.
Definitely.
Other. Especially other, in fact.
I'm a big rebel, man. I rebel against so many things, man. Like, but yeah, I think Black Sabbath, like every band, has come under fire for severe misunderstandings. By that I mean people who hear a lyric and then not think a little bit about it and just be like, oh, I don't like this. With their hit single Black Sabbath from the album Black Sabbath, etc., you get the gist. The song talks about like there are people who are like, oh no, the song's like satanic and it's like promoting Satan, and literally the what the song's about is like a guy who like is like, ooh, I'm gonna like look for Satan, and then he finds Satan. He's like, oh no, I shouldn't have done this. Don't do this. Which is about as anti-satanic as you can get. But I feel like the people who are gonna criticize metal as the devil's music or anything are going to find anything to be like that, like we saw with the Judas Priest thing.
I mean, speaking of like,
not the people it's made for.
Well, like speaking of like Black Sabbath songs about the devil, Nib is literally like spoken from the point of like the devil, but the song is like, about the devil falling in love and becoming a good person.
Yeah, it's great song, killer riff. Not a bad bass solo at the beginning. Let me tell you that. That bass solo, that's a classic. But yeah, no, that's a Geezer Butler with his lyrics does have a interesting approach to a lot of things and can have some very things that are like, I was about to say funny. That one's not quite. It's not quite funny, but a very novel feeling to them, if that makes sense. Like, it's like, hey, I am the devil. Hey, baby.
I mean, the novelty of the Geezer's writing is literally in the title. Like, Nib or N-I-B, whatever you want to call it, it's Nib, but like, they never say Nib in the songs. They never say words that are like N-I-B in that order. Or if they do, it's not really significant. But like, the reason he called it Nib was because Geezer Butler couldn't think of a title for it. So he was like, haha, Brad Ward's beard looks like a pen
Bill
nib.
Ward.
Oh,
Brad Ward.
Oh. Sorry, force of habit. Bill Ward's beard looked like a pen nib. So he was like, haha, nib. And then everyone was like, whoa, N-I-B, that must stand for something. And then everyone was like, nativity in black. And I don't know why they picked nativity in black. I mean, it sounds cool. That's not what it is. He literally just put punctuation marks there to make it look cool.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Pretend we continued with that for 3 more hours. But
Hey,
yes, Finley.
Yeah, just to provide a point of topic, we've talked about Black Sabbath and Paranoid. I suppose you could call them the band's foundational albums.
Oh my God.
If you wanted to.
Finley.
But I think they after Paranoid that that year of recording, right? The band you had they were recording Night. I'm blanking on the name of the album.
Master of Reality came out the next year.
Master of Reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that was around the time Ozzy stopped showing up to recording sessions, and they had a little fight. And I have a vague understanding of really, yeah, due to drug use and similar things, it wasn't going super awesome.
Wait, Ozzy Osbourne did drugs?
It's crazy.
No,
It's
that's crazy. Point of order, the escalation and him leaving didn't happen until 79.
Right. What? There was an album. There was an album around when it was happening. I'm trying to remember.
Was it Volume 4? Was it Sabbath Bloody Sabbath? Was it Sabotage? Was it Technical Ecstasy? Or was it Never Say Die?
It Never Say Die.
Yeah, that's 1979. You skipped.
I skipped a lot of stuff. My apologies.
Mm-hmm. It's all good.
Well, do we want to, before skipping off to them, then do we want to talk about Master of Reality or?
You know what? I'd say let's continue with kind of just the general story of Sabbath, and then after that we can go back around to what our favorite albums are.
Alrighty.
Well, if we're talking about general stories in Sabbath, we need to talk about some of the crazy crap that
wild, wacky,
wacky, and zany stuff that members of the band got into, especially Ozzy Osbourne, because as we said, he was very much doing drugs.
Yes, that.
For a lot of time. And I asked my dad before the podcast if he could tell me a story that he knew about any members of Black Sabbath. And he was like, oh, here's a fun one. And it really is a fun one. So buckle up. Y'all ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
So Ozzy Osbourne was getting really drunk one night. And his wife, Sharon, right, took all of his clothes so that he wouldn't, go anywhere. Because it was, nighttime.
Oh, dear.
So instead,
I don't like where this is going.
He went into the room, right, grabbed one of Sharon's dresses, and went outside in Texas wearing a dress at night, and then peed on the Alamo.
That's a great story.
That
is great.
This man.
And then
wow.
That's just messed up.
Mm-hmm.
That's God.
And it was behavior like this and eventual deterioration into just not being productive and contributing that after several good albums and some not as good albums and a lot of declining quality, and as Finley said, Ozzy stopping showing up in 1979, Ozzy, it's like, you know what, I quit and then he came back for a tour, and then afterwards they're like, all right, you're fired. And then he was fired.
You
And
can't
now-
quit because you're fired.
And then Geezer, Tony, and Bill were all like, all right, gentlemen, we've got a problem here. We have 0 singers, and we need one. So who are we going to call?
Dio.
Ghostbusters.
Not well, Dave Walker.
Dave Walker. No.
That would be
Dio.
an interesting timeline.
Ronnie James Dio of the band Dio and the person Dio.
But he wasn't of the band Dio yet. He was of the band Rainbow, which itself had Richie Blackmore, who was in Deep Purple before that, and Ian Gillan was also in Deep Purple. Wonder if he'll show up in this story.
That would be crazy if he showed up.
Wild and wacky if he showed up.
But yeah, Ronnie James Dio joined, breathed life into what had been a pretty stagnant Black Sabbath. Went on to record some mighty fine albums.
He had left Rainbow because he felt constricted by what he was kind of able to write there. I seem to recall reading something about that. Like he was like, I want to write songs about what people are experiencing, not just like romance songs. Come on. And then he gets to join up with Sabbath.
You know, if I thought anything about Dio, I thought, he would write about dragons and wizards. Which I believe I'm not certain about the accuracy of the story, but I had heard that when Dio joined Black Sabbath, the other guys had jokingly said, but you can't write lyrics, okay? Because you're just going to write about a bunch of dragons and knights and stuff.
I don't care about your wizards and Jedis.
Oh man, what a throwback.
Gosh.
But yeah, he went there, recorded some fantastic albums, and then he's like, all right, my work here is done. And he was like, hey, you, Vinny Appice, who was their drummer at the time, because Bill Ward had left many leaves of absences due to his... you see, Bill Ward, unlike Ozzy Osbourne, had the foresight and the self-reflection to be like, guys, I think I have a problem, so I'm gonna leave. And he did that a fair few times. Then he come back, do an album or two, leave again. But by the time Dio left, Bill Ward was not present. So he and Vinny Appice left, and they're like, all right, we're gonna start a band. We're call it Dio. And then they did that for a while. But, oh no, Black Sabbath is once again without a singer. Who will they call in to fill the shoes?
Dave Walker.
If only someone who was, if only, but like maybe someone else who was connected in some way in the community.
I don't know. This would take like a miracle. Jesus
himself could step in, but do we have one of those?
No.
Oh,
Wait, we do though.
Ian Gillan. Yeah.
Ian from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
True.
Ian.
But yeah, no. Ian Gillan joins Black Sabbath for a tour that I was looking into the other day, and I will remember it not mostly for its representation or its allusion to the hit film the inspirations that the hit film Spinal Tap drew from this particular tour. For those of you, what is Spinal Tap? Ian Gillan? What? They had a Stonehenge prop for their show, but due to measurement issues and communication stuff, the prop was far too large for just about any stage they were playing on. Like, it was just too big for any modern stage. And there's a joke about that in Spinal Tap, which, if you haven't seen, you should, because they take it all the way up to 11.
I was gonna say that.
I
I mean, it still wouldn't have been funny, but.
Hey, at least it wouldn't have been me saying it. But yeah. So Ian Gillan joins up with Black Sabbath for a little while. I believe he was only with them for around 2 albums, though, right?
I think it was just Born Again.
Just Born Again? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't there. I think everyone was kind of like, cool.
Which, okay, the one thing I'll say about Born Again right now is the album cover is like this horrifying monster devil baby thing. And I only realized that today. Before that, I thought it was like a guy in a spacesuit. I don't know why. I never looked closely at it. But like, I had thought that like the mouth was like the black
the
part of the spacesuit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit unsettling.
Mm-hmm. Just a bit.
It's almost like a CP.
And then after Ian Gillan left, Black Sabbath was, I don't want to say it was basically done, because they still went on, kept recording albums, but none of them really had the same spark as the earlier ones. They had Glenn Hughes for a while, was also in Deep Purple. And while Glenn Hughes was good, people felt he just really didn't fit Sabbath. After that, there was a extensive period of time where they had Tony Martin as their singer, which mostly seen as a pretty meh period. Dio did come back for Dehumanizer, which I like that album. It's definitely, I think it's Sabbath's heaviest album. As far as best, I wouldn't say so, but it's definitely got some heavy songs.
That was in 92, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got like Computer God on it. Good. And then so on and so forth, another couple years. Not much really happens. Eventually Geezer Butler leaves, and then Tony Iommi is just like, all right, well, it's just me and like some other people who I hired. So why are we even gonna? Why are we still here?
Just to suffer.
Just to suffer. And so Black Sabbath broke up, and they had a reunion in the 97, I think, and that was like, hey, nice, well received. For a little while after that, the
for Live Aid.
Yeah, they had Tony Geezer, Vinny Appice, and Dio reconvened to form a little band that was basically a tribute band for themselves. Called it Heaven and Hell. And then in 2013, I think, because
it's called 13.
Yeah, they released all the original guys except for Bill Ward, who wasn't able to make it. Got together. They released a new album for the first time in a while, and this was like, you got Ozzy, you got Geezer, you got Tony, and the reason why is because in 2012, Tony Iommi was diagnosed with cancer, and he was like, I may never be able to make another Black Sabbath album again, and I don't want my career with these people to be so far in the past. I want this to be my last memory. So he called together the old gang. They made an album. It was solid. And then he beat cancer. So he's like, oh, it's cool. So I can keep doing this. But I still got a cool album out of it. And then 2017, they officially ended with their one last tour, The End. But what a wild ride it was.
Goodness gracious. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those all bands have cool stories, but Sabbath has a pretty cool story.
Until it wasn't so cool. And then it became cool again.
Yeah.
And then it became heaven and hell.
And then reached the end. But, it's the apart from itself, it inspired a lot of stuff. Not only, primarily an entire genre, which we talked about, but it's you see its influences in other media, pulp, like in Spinal Tap and all over the place. It's just but that these things said, do we want to give a quick mention to Ozzy's solo career?
Ozzy also. I feel like I realized looking back, I kind of just we kind of just recapped the story of the band, but we haven't talked much about the music itself.
It's true. That's true.
Which you should listen to
stuff, but
the music. That's the name. Funny laugh. Yes, Ozzy Osbourne went on to have a solo career. He fronted his band called Ozzy Osbourne.
Named after the person Ozzy Osbourne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Indeed. He had Randy Rhoads as his guitarist for a while until he passed away. Then Geezer Butler briefly joined Ozzy Osbourne's band. That was neat. And he also briefly had Rob Trujillo from Metallica as his bassist. So he had a lot of...
It was a wild ride. Or I guess you could say a crazy train.
Crazy train?
Crazy train. Haha. Joke. Laugh now, Chase.
Like, I would, but like wild ride and crazy train don't really sound all that synonymous to me.
It was a train.
Yeah, listen, I know what you're going for.
You can ride a train. Don't tell me you can't.
It just wasn't funny.
I didn't say it was funny.
It was, and it was a shot in the dark, and he doesn't want to stop.
Huh.
But
that said,
for the sake of keeping the topic on the music itself, Black Sabbath, as I mentioned earlier, is favorite band. I've been unsuccessfully trying to keep my mouth shut this entire time, so I don't talk too much about Black Sabbath.
But we're talking about Black Sabbath.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about them now.
Exactly.
The Black Sabbath music has had a huge influence on like how I view music as a whole, and Sabbath wasn't the first metal band I heard, but they're what got me into metal. I remember many years ago, I was in PE, and the PE teacher played Enter Sandman by Metallica, and I was like, oh wow, that sounds cool. So I went home and I searched it up on YouTube because I didn't realize I could just use Spotify and not have an ad before every song. And so I was...
Ads?
Only every other 5
And so I listened to Enter Sandman again. And I'm like, wow, neat. I like this Metallica band. I'm gonna go listen to some of their. And then I listened to my next song was Master of Puppets, and I'm like, this is too much for me, because it's a bit of a steep incline between those two songs. But then I was like, but I like metal. I like that metal sound. What do I go to next? And then I started listening to Sabbath, and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, oh wow, oh geez, this is insane. And I just started devouring Sabbath and Dio, and then and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. Before you know it, I was back and all right, I'm gonna listen to that Metallica song again. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is fire. And now I've gone further from that. We've got Slayer, we've got Death, we've got Opeth, we got Gojira, and I really have Sabbath to thank, because it's not like the in-your-face metal, but it's got that intensity and that aggression behind it that kind of really, really gets to you.
Yeah.
And a year or two after I started playing the bass, because of Geezer Butler and also Cliff Burr from Metallica. But Geezer's a phenomenal bassist and is a huge influence on me. Not specifically in my playing, because he does this weird thing where he will kind of make his hand into a paddle and use all of his fingers at once to strike the strings, as opposed to like alternating between your first two fingers. And he plays really close to the neck, which is what gives him that sort of. If that's not being picked up by my mic, but exactly, so it gives it that sound, and but just the way he constructs his bass lines, and like how a lot of them do follow the guitar, but then he's got all these really cool fills in there, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but suffice to say, I really like Black Sabbath.
And it's a well-deserved admiration.
Yeah, they're pretty neat.
Yeah, so, yeah. Given we're talking about, well, how cool Black Sabbath is and our personal stuff with that, do we want to briefly touch on albums? Because that's what we generally... That's the formula.
Mm-hmm.
We have no script, but we're still formulaic. Let's go.
Hey, we have to figure it out as we go along. Yeah. So, Sean, given you are our Sabbath expert, do you want to?
I'll go last on this one, because I'm probably going to mention like the two albums.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I suppose I'll start then. Mine isn't my favorite Sabbath album is probably Paranoia, and it's.
Wow, you're so basic.
And yeah, it's not a very refined approach to Sabbath, but it's a really good album, and I don't listen to a whole bunch of metal, and when I do, I listen to Paranoid because it's really good. It's just I think for me it encapsulates when I'm like I need a metal fix for whatever reason. I need me some metal. Paranoid covers my needs, and the songs are, for those of you who may consider yourself entering into the metal genre, I might, recommend checking it out. But yeah, that's for me. Chase, Harrison, you got a favorite album from Sabbath?
I suppose I'll go first. Well, this may sound, fairly basic, but yeah, Paranoid is my favorite Black Sabbath album. I mean, like,
It's so good.
it's so good, but like, if I were to, pick something that's not Paranoid, Heaven and Hell, pretty fire. Heaven and Hell, by the way, is the first album with Ronnie James Dio as their singer. And also, we didn't mention this, but they named the band Heaven and Hell after the album Heaven and Hell with the song Heaven and Hell. And I'm gonna keep making those jokes, regardless of how they weren't funny the first time and they're still not funny. But
I mean, hey, if you find that funny, wait, we should do Iron Maiden's. They got Iron Maiden on the album Iron Maiden.
wait, but what's the band called?
Death by Bird.
Okay, Chase, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm gonna break this trend of Paranoid, and I'm gonna be very not basic. My favorite album from Black Sabbath is Paranoid.
Whoa, that's wild.
Yeah, no, I mean, okay, like, yeah, you've heard it. It's a great album. It's like I think at the beginning I said we were trying not to say generic songs, but like iconic. I think honestly, I think really from Paranoid, I gotta say a lot of what got me into that particular album was Iron Man, just because I find that to be super iconic.
Mhm.
But that it's yeah, you've heard two people, you've heard Finn and Harrison talk about Paranoid. I don't need to drill it any further into your brain. So please, Sean, take it away and show us basic people up.
Yeah. I will also give a quick honorable mention, given that we all did talk about Paranoid. Master of Reality, also really solid.
Masters of Puppets is pretty good too.
That's not Black Sabbath, silly.
That's not
but
Black Sabbath. That's Judas Priest.
No.
my favorite Sabbath song individually.
We're not doing that yet, Finley. Finley, come on. You're jumping.
Yeah, come on.
John,
Stick to
that
the
comes
script that we don't
from
have.
Master of Reality.
Finley, look at the script again. Come on.
Look at the script we don't have.
You're an actor, Finley.
And next, talking, Sean, what would you like to?
Yes. So
Camera
both of
pans
mine
to
were
Sean.
said already. Right. So Paranoid, right? My third favorite.
Really?
Yes, I will say my first two favorite, and it's a tie between these. Really, whichever one I've listened to last would be two that have already been mentioned by you guys. But Heaven and Hell and Master of Reality. I really like. Ronnie James Dio is by far my favorite vocalist in any genre. Just that both the soaring vocals he brings and the almost annoying times, which really gives a lot of emotion and depth there. In addition, there's a lot of great riffs and especially solos that solo on Heaven and Hell. But everything's phenomenal on that album. Everything is just tight. It's really, like I said earlier, it's a breath of fresh air after a couple less than stellar Sabbath records. And then Master of Reality, of course, is, I feel like, it's like, all right, they've got Paranoid, they've got their big success, and then so that they're already on a high note there, and then it's like, boom, Master of Reality, you've got just an onslaught of songs that, there's a couple of songs where Tony and Geezer tuned down to C-sharp tuning, so they tuned down by 3 half steps, and that, which granted, tuning down does not inherently make a song heavy. A lot of metal musicians need to learn that, but they've got some powerful bangers there that I will surely mention when I when we get to songs. But Master of Reality, everyone's like tone is really good. Ozzy's vocals are solid. I feel like there's a couple where the delivery is a little off, but Tony and Geese are just going at it. Bill's doing all sorts of wild things. It's just a wonderful album.
And speaking of songs, do you want to start us off?
No,
Sean should
because I
answer.
have probably 8.
Fair enough. Well, Harrison?
Oh, okay.
Oh, you also have a bunch?
I thought we were gonna do same order, Finley.
Yeah. Okay, well, fine. Because I apparently am very eager to share my favorite Sabbath song, Sweet Leaf, off of Master of Reality. It's really, like, it's one of those, it's really well put together. It's got a cool vibe. And it's actually, it's my, I'm big into snowboarding and snow sports, whatever. But like,
And waterboarding.
Whoa.
Yikes.
Don't remind me of my,
Why is that
don't
the
remind me of
first
my
thing you
kite
said?
surfing experience. Yeah, it's you're cutting through the slopes, you're cruising down, and you get some sweet leaf going. It's good. It's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, but yeah, that's mine.
Okay, I guess I'll go. And I don't want to mention songs off Paranoid, but I will. Warpig's Paranoid and Iron Man are so good. Anyways, moving on from Paranoid. Heaven and Hell from the album Heaven and Hell. It's a pretty good song. And then I would also like to mention The Mob Rules from the album Mob Rules.
Mm-hmm.
They're very
Most bands do that.
Oh, and I also want to mention Nib and the Wizard from Black Sabbath, the album Black Sabbath from the band Black Sabbath. I love the Wizard. I love the intro to the Wizard. I don't know why.
Harmonica intro.
Yeah, the harmonica intro. I think Ozzy played the harmonica. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
I do not know.
Yeah,
but
take your word for it.
it's really good. But then I just want to say Nib is like clumped with like 3 other songs on that album. I do prefer Nib by itself.
Mm-hmm.
But it did that song did originate on this album, so I will mention it as being from this album. But yeah, those are some of my favorites, and then obviously Paranoid from Paranoid.
But what's your favorite out of those ones?
Ooh, Nib.
Nice. And Mr.
Yeah,
Chase?
okay. Yep, it comes down to me. Okay, like Harrison said, I don't want to name songs off of Paranoid, so I won't. Ooh, switching it up.
Whoa, hey, take it easy.
Okay, I want to put this real straight down there. I love Ozzy Osbourne. Like that man is I really appreciate, just stutter through this. I really appreciate his music, which is probably why I chose Paranoid as my favorite album. But what I'm going to say for song is, I think if you look back at some of our past episodes, I think kind of sometimes my favorite album will be influenced greatly by my favorite song. This is not the case for Black Sabbath. My favorite song is actually Children of the Sea, which is nowhere near Paranoid. And I mean, as much as I love Ozzy Osbourne, not on it because he got kicked. So yeah, Children of the Sea from Heaven and Hell. I just love it. It's so great, man. It just does its thing, and it does its thing well.
Could not agree more. All right, let me pull out the tome.
Slam down the book of songs.
I'm going to try to avoid ones that I've already said, but all the ones that people have said so far.
All of them?
Yeah, those are all solid. But some other ones that have not been talked about. We've talked about a couple of these, but just to wrap up, Black Sabbath, fantastic. That little opening, just that main riff, just ooh. It's a sufficiently spooky song, must say.
Which, of course, is
And
from the album Black Sabbath.
The solo is also superb. Really, Tony is. That's the thing. Like, no matter how uninteresting or how much you may not like a specific Sabbath song, it's always gonna have a rad Tony solo. But then from Master Reality, you got I'm skipping Paranoid because no, I want to skip Paranoid. Fairies Wear Boots is cool. But Master of Reality, you got Into the Void, which has got it's got that really cool intro, really great riff. You're sensing a pattern here. They've got they're pretty good at making music. I know, Sean.
Wait, the professional musicians are good at making music?
I don't know, man.
Crazy.
But another song I almost forgot from Paranoid, Electric Funeral. That's one of my favorite Sabbath riffs. I must say I probably don't like the end where it's just like Ozzy saying Electric Funeral. The ending I feel like is but the rest of that song, just that riff is just so whatever that noise meant, I mean it. But of course, you've got Children of the Grave, that wonderful riff and bass line. I didn't notice this until recently, but on the main riff, because I was listening to just the bass track of that one, because I'm like, I want to learn this song. Geezer does a little vibrato on that part that I never noticed in the original. It's like, oh wow, that sounds really spooky. That's like real graveyard stuff going on there. Wonderful, wonderful song. And yeah, obviously, Heaven and Hell, like Harrison said, fantastic vocals, fantastic cool drums. Geezer's got keeping the anchor down with the bass, fantastic. Neon Nights is also great. Just a wonderful. Spoiler alert, I really like Ronnie James Dio. But yeah, that's a wonderful one. Lady Evil is also really cool off of Heaven and Hell. And that one's more of it's less like the other ones where it's like, ooh yeah, but it's more of just like a jam. Like it's like, ooh yeah, man, I can vibe this, or I can jam out to this. But yeah, there's a lot of Sabbath songs because but to wrap it up, if I had to one, this is so tough.
I like that song too.
Maybe it might be War Pigs. Maybe it might be NIB for the bass solo. Both of those songs have fantastic bass intros. The War Pigs one is really fun. But you know what? I'm gonna have to go with Children of the Grave. But this is like if I had 24 children and I had to choose one of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, you don't want to, but in your heart.
Hold up.
Well, no.
Hold up. I have a great quote from a music teacher that I studied under at one point. She said, like, it doesn't completely apply to what you're saying, but it kind of sort of does, and it's kind of sort of not really funny, but like okay. She said, notes are like children. You can't love them all equally. So, following that, if you had like 12 children, they're children. You can't love them all equally.
Which I
You
don't
know
think
what?
is the point you were trying to get across, but it's
Mhm. You know what? No, my favorite is Heaven and
okay.
by the time in 10 minutes my opinion will have changed, but you get the
I'll post
idea.
that in
There's
And the 10 minutes
description.
it took you to get to this opinion.
indeed
I
but
jest, of course.
sure, but in summation, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I and any of those songs on that list of a dozen or so that I gave, plus all the ones you guys mentioned, very well could be my favorite. There's a reason Black Sabbath's my favorite band. And do I know the reason or how to express it? I don't, but that doesn't matter.
And that, I think, unless there's anything else we want to touch on.
I mean, there's a million things we could touch on.
Mhm.
We like
But-
revisit this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
seeing how long, I think we definitely spent a bit too much time on just about their history. That's on me. I tend to ramble on.
They are the band, the myth, the legend.
It's an English rock band formed in 1968.
They truly were. They truly were.
They were a foundational
Um,
English. There are two foundational English rock bands formed in 1968, and I think that's just beautiful.
Dude,
I really think it is.
in like 5 more, or like probably in like 20 more episodes, if we say foundational in every episode, going to go absolutely insane. Like that word is starting to get me.
That would be foundational to your deteriorating mental state.
You know what? I think
Yeah, everyone, I think we should do the Beatles.
I think we should end here.
I think we should.
I'm in agreement.
But what
So-
you should do, as our listener,
Mm.
is listen to the music.
Ah,
Yeah.
thanks for watching and stuff.